Grace and peace to you. Last night we had our family faith night, which is when we gather with our elementary school age children and younger and their families and have some faith formation time. Last night we talked about communion, so I thought today I'd share a little bit of what that conversation was like. Whenever I'm talking about communion, especially the children, I lift up three primary focuses for understanding it that I think are helpful. And I don't have time to do all three in a short 2-minute video, but the number one thing, the first thing that I lift up is that communion is Jesus. Communion is not like Jesus. It's not similar. It's not representative or just a remembrance. We say that communion is Jesus. I used the illustration last night of when I'm doing the words of institution, right? Jesus doesn't say, this is like my body. Jesus doesn't say, this is to remember my body. Jesus says, this is my body. This is my blood. And we believe that when we have the bread and wine, it truly is Jesus. And one of the ways we illustrated that last night was to take and make our own bread, because, of course, when I say this really is Jesus, the kids, some of them are saying, well, then that's kind of gross, right? Because eating a body, drinking blood, that's weird, right? And so we make our own bread with the kids last night, and we added, the flour and the sugar and salt and baking powder, baking soda, all that stuff, and said, now wait, when did we add the Jesus, right? Were there 2 scoops of Jesus that went in this recipe? No. We don't add Jesus to it because it still is bread. When we have communion, it really is bread, but somehow also it really is Jesus. And we believe that that's not because we put Jesus in there, it's because Jesus is present in the bread, because Jesus promises to be. And that doesn't necessarily make sense to us, and yet we can one of the gifts of communion, of the sacraments, and communion in particular, since that's what we're talking about, is that we can hold the bread in our hand and we can touch it. And we might say, God is all around us. God is in this or that or the other. But when you hold it in your hand, we hold that bread and we say, this is Jesus. And we can hold it, we can touch it, we can taste it, and we can let it enter into us. That's one of the greatest gifts of communion, I think, is that tangibility, and then we consume it knowing that Jesus really is in our flesh now too, and we are connected through that. And so that's just one of the things. I'm sure as we do these videos, we'll talk about communion a lot more, but that's one little thing I wanted to share today. So remember that you are loved, and God's peace be with you.